Hello, beautiful souls. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Carolyn, and this channel is all about true crime, mystery, and anything abnormal. I highly recommend subscribing because this channel is definitely a vibe. I just want to let you all know that I'm actually extremely sick right now, but I really wanted to get a video out, so I'm just going to do the best I can. Today's story takes place in Arizona, and this is actually the fourth video I've done that's taken place in Arizona. So if you're from Arizona or you've lived in Arizona, what's up? I always thought of Arizona as a very peaceful place, but every time I start researching cases, I keep finding stories in Arizona. In Phoenix, Arizona, Tew Benderly started a consignment store in 1983. She sold used furniture, and she had followed in her mother's footsteps. Her mother, Loretta, had had a consignment store before her, and then Loretta had decided to open her own with a $2,000 loan from her mother. Terry's mother, Loretta, had been successful in her store, but it was nothing compared to what Terry did. By the early 1990s, Terry was a master at marketing. She was extremely successful, and she was making a lot of money from her store. Terry had won an award in the early 90s for Top Arizona Businesswoman. As well as the consignment shop, Terry also worked for Avon. With Avon, she had won Women Enterprise of the Year. So when it came to business, it didn't matter what business she was running, she was extremely successful. In the early 90s, Terry was featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show. The title of the show that she was on was Unexpected Millionaires. Although Terry was the one who owned the store, and Terry is the daughter, Loretta is her mother, but Loretta worked for Terry, and Loretta also became extremely wealthy from the same business as Terry. To celebrate her success, Loretta decided to buy a really large home in the Phoenix area. After moving in, she then found the house was maybe a bit too big for her, so she decided she was going to take in a renter. She wasn't taking in a renter because she needed the money. She was taking in a renter so that she could have some company. So as you would do in the early 90s, if you were looking to rent a room, you would put an ad in the classifieds of the newspaper. The first person who responded was Tew Benderly. Tew was a 49-year-old man who had just arrived in the Phoenix area. Tew showed up at Loretta's house with no money and no possessions. He told Loretta the reason he didn't have any belongings was that he had just gotten off a plane and the airline had actually lost his suitcase. And isn't that convenient? 51-year-old Loretta felt really bad for him that he had lost his suitcase, and she invited him to move in with her. Tew was very intelligent and very charming, and Loretta was very easily charmed by him. Tew had told Loretta that he didn't have any family of his own. He said that both of his parents had passed away when he was a child, and he was raised by his grandmother who had since passed, and he had never had any siblings, and he had never been married or had any children. It was just him. He also told Loretta that he had a master's degree in business. And it did not take long, and Loretta was in love. Loretta still continued to work very hard every day in her daughter's business, making very good money. Tew, on the other hand, didn't work. He claimed he was going to be the next great inventor. He spent a lot of time in the garage playing with things, but he never invented anything. In my personal opinion, I think he just said he was an inventor so he didn't have to work and could pretend that while he was out in the garage, he was trying to do something to make money for himself. But in reality, he wasn't doing anything. From the outside looking in, Tew and Loretta's relationship looked like it was going very well. But Tew decided he wanted some of Terry's money. So you have Loretta, who's the mother, which is who Tew is in a relationship with. And Loretta's daughter, Terry, is the business owner that her mother works for. And Terry is extremely, extremely successful. So Tew starts thinking, she's got a lot of money. I don't have any money. How can I get her money? And this was not a man that was willing to work for money. Loretta and Terry had always had an amazing relationship, and they'd always had an amazing working relationship until Tew got involved. Tew convinced Loretta that Terry was basically ripping her off and that Terry owed her a lot of money. At first, Loretta didn't believe it because it wasn't true. Terry was extremely generous with her mother. They both worked together very well. And Loretta was making very, very good money on her own as well. But Tew convinced Loretta to sue Terry. Loretta suing Terry obviously did not go over well. The lawsuit took many years to resolve, and it really took a toll emotionally on Loretta. The lawsuit also caused a lot of friction in the relationship between Loretta and her daughter, Terry. As the years went by, Tew became more and more emotionally abusive to Loretta. Loretta finally decided to confide in her daughter, Terry, and also two of Loretta's sisters. She told them about the emotional abuse and how she was feeling and everything that she was dealing with. And her daughters and sisters were very supportive and, they were willing to do anything to help her. Loretta ended up deciding that she was in her 60s, she didn't want to start over, and one way or another, she would make it work with Tew. And Tew at this point still had not invented anything, and spoiler alert, he never does. But whenever there were family gatherings or friends over, he would talk a lot about his inventions and how he just needed money to be able to create the inventions to become successful. And Terry must have been some kind of angel because she gave him between $20,000 and $40,000 every single year towards his inventions. With nothing, no results, like nothing ever comes of this. And what Terry didn't know was she wasn't the only one giving Tew money. Tew was taking money from other family members, from friends, from neighbors. He was taking money from anyone that he could. And again, there's no inventions that are coming out of all of this money being poured into his invention career. So at this point, Tew and Loretta have been together for 18 years. At 6 p.m. on December 14th, 2004, Tew goes into a mall security station and tells them that he's been looking for his wife and he can't find her. Now, they had lived in Phoenix, Arizona, but this was a mall in Tucson, Arizona. The two of them, according to Tew, had decided to take a 5-day vacation and do some Christmas shopping. So Tew, to the security guards, is in a frenzy, saying he dropped Loretta off at 2 p.m. He told them that he was coming back at 4 to pick her up. He said he came back at 4 and had been looking for her from 4 to 6, and it's now 6 p.m. So he was claiming he had spent the last 2 hours searching for Loretta. The security soon called police, and Tew had told the security and the police that he had dropped off Loretta at Dillard's department store at 2 p.m. But what he doesn't seem to understand is malls have security footage. So Tew, you can say whatever you want, but security and the police are going to look at the footage to see, does it match? Spoiler alert, no, it doesn't. Tew claimed that him and Loretta had left the Phoenix area around 10:30 a.m. He said that they had arrived at their hotel at noon, and then at 2 p.m. he had dropped her off at the mall. Police were quickly extremely suspicious because they could find no footage of Loretta at the mall. They couldn't find any footage of her being dropped off, being out in the parking lot, being in Dillard's, which was the department store he said she was in. They couldn't find her anywhere else in the mall at all. There was also no footage of him looking for Loretta for 2 hours. So as you may remember, when he went to the security, it was 6 p.m. and he said he had been searching in the mall and in Dillard's for her from 4 to 6 p.m., a 2-hour period. When the footage is checked, the police can see Tew pull up, park outside of the mall at 6 p.m. and walk directly in towards the security area. So he hadn't been looking for her at all in the mall. He arrived at the mall and headed straight to the security desk to report in a frenzied state that he'd been searching for 2 hours, which obviously we know is not true. The security footage showed Tew arrive at the hotel. It showed him go to the room. It saw him leave the room and go to the van, but Loretta was never seen on any of the footage at the hotel. The hotel workers as well said that Tew had arrived at the hotel alone and they had never seen Loretta. They believed that it was only him that had come to the hotel. The police got a search warrant for the hotel room. They found a ton of really expensive jewelry. They found a whole bunch of guns and a whole bunch of ammo. Not exactly what you take on a 5-day vacation to go Christmas shopping, but that's not it. There's more. Inside the hotel, they find 8 suitcases. So the story he's giving is they're on this 5-day vacation in Tucson, Arizona, but they've got 8 suitcases. So the police obviously look inside the suitcases. 7 of the suitcases are full of Tew's items. There was only 1 suitcase that had anything that belonged to Loretta, but it wasn't enough that they thought if she was packing to go away for 5 days that she had enough items. Police also got a search warrant for the minivan that Tew had been driving. And that only made things look worse because in the back of the minivan, they found a pickaxe and a shovel, and they were both caked in mud. They also find a box, and in the box, there's rope, but more importantly, there is a map of the desert between Phoenix and Tucson. At this point, police believed that Tew had probably killed Loretta in Phoenix and buried her somewhere between Phoenix and Tucson in the desert. But they had no body and they had no way to hold him at this point. Terry, Loretta's daughter, was extremely worried about her mother's disappearance. And she had a lot of media connections. Because she was so wealthy, she was able to get her mother featured on a lot of television stations and in a lot of newspapers. Police also had a ping from Tew's cell phone that was in the desert in between Arizona and Tucson. The problem was they had the ping from the cell phone, but it was such a large area of desert that they weren't very hopeful that they would be actually able to recover her body. Police then decide to take a look at the couple's finances. And that is when they discovered the true motive. Tew had taken out a number of large loans in Loretta's name without her knowledge. They also found that Tew had been embezzling money from her business and he hadn't been making the mortgage payments. The couple was in huge financial debt, and it was only a matter of days before their home would have been foreclosed on. What police believe happened was that Loretta found out about all the financial problems the day before she was killed. Because the day before she was killed, Loretta had made 17 phone calls to her bank. And the bank was able to confirm that when she was calling, she didn't know about these loans. She didn't know the mortgage wasn't getting paid. And she definitely didn't know her house was about to be foreclosed on. And Terry, Loretta's daughter at this point, she was still a little concerned about Tew and how he was handling everything. And she noticed that she hadn't heard from him in a couple of days, so she decided to contact the police. On December 22nd, just 8 days after Loretta had gone missing, the police arrived at their home and found Tew hanging in the garage, and he had unalived himself. He had left a note basically saying that him and Loretta had always planned to spend eternity together, and now they would. But Tew, just an FYI, I don't think you and Loretta are going to the same place, sweetie. After Tew had died, Terry then found out a whole bunch of information. Basically, Tew had been lying about everything. He still had 2 parents that were alive. He had a brother, and he also had an ex-wife and 2 children that he had not spoken to in the last 18 years while he had been with Loretta. Terry also found out that the day 18 years ago when he had arrived on Loretta's doorstep, he had just been released from prison for theft. And a year after Loretta went missing, 2 hikers in the desert came across a body. Dental records proved that it was Loretta's body. The medical examiner determined that she had died of asphyxiation, most likely with a plastic bag over her head. Her body was also fully clothed other than shoes. So police believe what they had believed from the beginning was that Loretta had been killed at home and then taken out to the desert to be buried. And that's today's really sad story about Loretta, who just seemed to have a heart of gold and wanted to help people, and unfortunately she helped the wrong person. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do apologize. I am very sick. I have the illness starting with a C that we're not allowed to mention on YouTube, but you know what I mean. So I definitely wasn't feeling well, but I really wanted to get a video out. I hope you enjoyed it. And I just want to thank you guys so much. You guys are absolutely, truly amazing. All the lovely comments and likes and views and subscribers. You guys are absolutely amazing, and it really means the world to me. And I will see you in the next one.